Okay, cybersecurity is working. So I'd like to also talk about, because Adam already talked about Taiwan scenarios. So I also talk a little bit about Taiwan scenarios from cybersecurity perspectives. Does it sound good to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'd like to talk about now why cybersecurity is getting more important for Japan, but also for Japan-U.S. alliance. And what Japan has been doing in terms of cybersecurity, and what can we do through this Japan-U.S. alliance. So I think that there are three major lessons we can learn from the ongoing war in Ukraine in terms of cybersecurity. And I recently published another co-authored op-ed from Nikkei Asia with my Taiwanese friend, Yuster Yu. So three lessons, namely, cyber is the important part of the 21st century war. So cybersecurity or cyber attacks are embedded in the 21st century types of war. So we will see it in the next future conflict, either in the Taiwan Strait or other regions as well. And cyber is already in a component in the conflict in the Middle East too, even though we do not see much in the media. And the second is that the good defenses would work well, even against the really strong adversary in the cyber domain. So everybody saw that Ukraine would be defeated by massive cyber attacks from Russia. But it didn't happen so far. Why? Because Ukraine took 8 years to build up their cyber defenses. And the Russians have been doing cyber attacks since the 1980s. So they have 3 decades of cyber attacks history, but still good cyber defenses would work. And finally, the third is that the public-private partnerships are so crucial in cybersecurity. Why? Because the cyber domain is fundamentally unique and different from other domains. Cyber domain is the only domain consisting of artificial items, technologies, software, hardware, but ground or space, everything not non-artificial, natural items. So that is why you have to have companies' collaborations to double down your cyber defenses. So the Ukrainians have done a lot to prepare for potential cyber attacks from adversaries, including Russia. And because the United States had already anticipated that Russia would invade Ukraine as of fall 2021. So according to the Financial Times, the US Army and the US industry sent the team of cybersecurity experts to Ukraine between October and November 2021. And they specifically look into the networks of Ukrainian critical infrastructures. Why? Because looking at the history of Russian cyber attacks, they expected Russians already embedded their wiper malware in the networks of Ukrainian critical infrastructure companies. And surely they did in the networks of the Ukrainian railway. And can you please remind yourself what you see in the eves of the February 24th of 2022? How Ukrainian citizens evacuated from their own country, and how Ukrainian military received their military aid from other countries. Railway. Imagine if the American team was not able to find and delete malware from the networks of Ukrainian railway beforehand. So they might have been able to paralyze the operations of the railway. In that case, the Ukrainians will never be able to evacuate their citizens outside their countries or receive humanitarian aid or military aid from different countries through Poland. And also the Ukrainians did their own cyber defense efforts too. So in January 2022, 1 month before the invasion started, the Ukrainians started to see a significant increase in the disruptive cyber attacks to their government, but also to their financial institutions. So the Ukrainian government thought, so we had thought that we did every effort to increase our cyber defenses, but there might have been some vulnerabilities in our cyber defenses. So we should look into that. So that's why they used our red teams to actually launch offensive cyber attacks on their own IT systems. And if they find any vulnerable systems, they patched and they build up their cyber defenses. So they did every effort, utmost efforts to increase their cyber defenses until the last minute. And if you're interested in Japanese cybersecurity or the big news in Japan, you might already remember that a big ransomware attack hit the port of Nagoya, which is the largest and busiest commercial port in Japan. And this cyber attack actually paralyzed the operations of cargo shipping for 2 days in July 2023. And everybody thought that, oh, this might have been just a regular ransomware attack from a criminal group. But the Financial Times later reported that this might have been an attempt by a state actor, such as China, to test Japan's defenses. And I haven't seen any follow-up news reports or any press release from the government or cybersecurity vendors, but I thought that this is a really interesting analysis of this ransomware attack. And China has already done multiple ransomware attacks for financial reasons, but not necessarily for disruptive only reasons. And starting from February 2023, the US government started to vocally raise their concerns over potential usage of disruptive cyber attacks in the case of Taiwan crisis. Again, cyber attacks would be the crucial component of the 21st century style of war or conflict. The reason why the US government anticipated that cyber will be the component of the future conflict is that to deter US military actions by impeding US decision-making processes, inducing social panic, and also interfering with the deployment of US forces to the conflict zone. And specifically, the annual threat assessment in February 2023 gave multiple examples of potential targets by the Chinese cyber attacks, namely oil and gas pipelines and rail systems. And 5 months later, the New York Times actually reported that the Biden administrations already anticipated that the Chinese have already penetrated into the networks of US critical infrastructure companies, namely electricity, communications, and water supplies to support US bases in and outside the United States. So the back in February 2023, the U.S. intelligence report was more specifically focused on critical infrastructure companies within the United States. But now, or even though that this is not from the government, New York Times article, but this is now expanded the scope of potential targets outside the United States. And who will be the most important allied countries to the United States in the case of Taiwan Strait crisis? And which country has more US bases to support US actions to do that? Japan. And 6 months later, now the Washington Post published another shocking article. Actually, the Chinese have been able to breach a water facility in Hawaii, major port on the West Coast, and the oil and gas pipeline in the United States over the last year. And these critical infrastructure sectors already mentioned in the New York Times article and also the US intelligence report. And this January, this year, the US government announced in a collaboration with other Five Eyes countries that they had disrupted Chinese hacking operations against the communications, energy, transportation, and water. And the US government also mentioned that these cyber attacks are not only directed against the United States, but also other foreign victims. And the US government didn't name which countries were exactly targeted. But it's also interesting that which countries will be the most important allies for the United States, and also in case of the Taiwan contingency. So that is why now the United States and Japan have more reasons why we should focus on cybersecurity in the broader context of security collaborations, and also to prepare for any contingency in the region. Okay, so let's look at what Japan has done in terms of cybersecurity. So the self-defense forces, because now I'd like to talk more about the security collaboration between Japan and the United States. So let me focus on self-defense forces and cybersecurity efforts. So so even though that it's not having much reported in the English media outlet, so the self-defense forces have been doing a lot in terms of cybersecurity. So for example, the Japan ground self-defense forces started to send a liaison officer to the US Army Cyber Center of Excellence in Georgia since October 2016. And the Japan ground self-defense forces already started cybersecurity programs to teach not only the Army, but also Air Force and Navy. Why? Because the JGSDF is much larger compared to the Japanese Navy and Air Force. So that's why they're doing that. And the JGSDF also has a high school, and they already started to provide cybersecurity education programs as well. And I know that the Japanese self-defense forces have been criticized a lot because they have a much smaller cyber defense command component compared to Americans or other countries. But they are already actually doubled the number of the cyber defense command this year compared to last year. And they already have different cyber command components in the west and the east, and also the middle part of Japan. And not only that, now self-defense forces have been doing a lot to incorporate cyber components in the multi-domain, cross-domain exercises, not only with Japan, not only with American counterparts, but also inviting Australians as well. Australians and the British as well. And even though that Japan is not a member state of the NATO, but Japan is a member of the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence in Tallinn, Estonia. after Prime Minister Abe visited Estonia several years ago. So NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence has been doing an annual cyber exercise, mainly with the NATO states members, but also started to invite other countries as well, including Japan. And Japan, for the first time, participated in this exercise in 2021. And because this locked shield exercise has become so popular, so you have to team up with another country. So two countries will be always pair. And in the first year, back in 2021, Japan teamed up with the United States. But interestingly enough, United States sends Indo-PACOM from Hawaii. And also, it is really interesting that Japan not only sent military defense and self-defense forces, but also civilian agencies and critical infrastructure companies. Why? Because if any conflict or war happens, cyber attacks will target not only military or civilian agencies, but critical infrastructure companies, what we have seen in Ukraine. And the next year, Japan teamed up with British. And the last year, Australia. Again, Americans, British, and Australians have only sent their military or the military defense, but always Japan sends the civilian agencies and critical infrastructure companies. And well, it's a public information, but the NTT also sends our teams to this exercise too. I think this is really important for Japan because if anything happens, either in a peacetime or in a wartime, everybody has to come together because everybody has a cybersecurity components and there's no boundary. So the military, defense, civilian agencies and critical infrastructure companies have to get together and share expertise and also cyber threat intelligence to make sure that the damages will be minimum. So I think this is really important for Japan to send everybody to this kind of exercise. And it's really difficult to gauge what kind of cybersecurity capabilities each country has, because nobody really wants to reveal their true capabilities, especially in terms of the offensive capabilities. But this CyberNet exercise hosted by the Dutch Cyber Command is a bit different because this is not only about cyber defense capabilities, but also about offensive capabilities. And last year, 2023, Japan sent self-defense forces and it ranked the third. So this is really interesting. And Adam already talked about the Japanese national security strategy from 2022. So the 2002 version of the new strategy talks a lot about cybersecurity capabilities. And they talked about active cyber defense to try to minimize the damages caused by disruptive cyber attacks even before that cyber attack happens, and also talks about threat hunting capabilities. So threat hunting is something that the United States has done before the invasion started against Ukrainians to try to look into your networks to make sure that footage, any trace of cyber attacks are not there. And if you see something or anything wrong, then you will delete it. So Japan is trying to increase the capability of threat hunting as well. And the self-defense forces will increase the size of cyber defense command from now it's over 2,000 but it's going to be also almost 4,000 by Japanese fiscal year 2027. And the Japanese government already has done this year's to submit the new registrations to the draft of security clearance under the Economic Security Promotion Act this March. And this is expected to expand the collaborations to share more sensitive information between the government and industry. And also the NISC, the Japanese Cybersecurity Center, already double the size of the staffers this April. So Japan is doing a lot. So what kind of next steps now we want to see between Japan and the United States in terms of cybersecurity? Well, we have to make sure that now we have a long-term cyber defense build-up, not only in Japan, but also between Japan and the United States. Why? Looking at Ukraine, long-term cyber defense is crucial to fight against the huge adversary. And also not only the Japanese and American government and military expand their cyber defenses capabilities, but we also have to have a collaboration from the industry as well. And Japan and the United States have been doing a lot in terms of cyber security exercises, but not necessarily we've seen that Americans send their critical infrastructure companies to join that type of exercises. So this might be another area we can look into. And we've already doing the Quad collaborations to expand our cybersecurity collaborations. But what we haven't seen yet is Japan, US, Taiwan collaboration on cybersecurity. I know that this can be the sensitive issue, especially given the diplomatic ties between Japan and Taiwan. So that is why I think the industry would play a major role to play, because they do not have to worry too much about diplomatic status, and we can overcome political struggles. So thank you very much, and I look forward to having your questions.